Hello, everybody. It's me, Kenneth, and today I have a very, very special guest. All my guests are special, but this one is extra special. I have Larry Seyer. It's Seyer, right?
Yes, rhymes with fire.
Larry Seyer, and Larry does many things. Larry runs an ACIM. There's a podcast on ACIM. There's a show, right, on ACIM
Yeah.
Gather.
It's a weekly podcast, radio show. It's also carried live on co-creatornetwork.com.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's available as iTunes as a download.
Right. And Larry's an ACIM student. He studied the course for since 1988, right?
That's correct.
He is also a student of the NTI by Regina Dawn Akers, and also does some teaching on that. He is a student of the Law of One.
Yes.
Raw Material, and he is the webmaster for Divine Cosmos.
Yeah. Which
I am a fan of as well, and I am a fan of the work of David Wilcock as well. Larry is also a Grammy Award-winning producer, and you've won 9 Grammy Awards.
Yes.
You are also the interviewer for the Most Dangerous Device podcast show.
Yes.
Where they talk about alternative, it's not, but it's free energy devices, basically.
Over Unity devices.
Over Unity devices. And I think that's. I'm sure there's more to it, but that's we're gonna try and come up with something meaningful, which I'm sure we will, with all those bases of knowledge.
Nothing else will have fun. How about that? Yeah.
It sounds like a great idea. So Larry, welcome, and thank you for having this show with us.
Oh, I'm very happy to be here.
So maybe let's just start with A Course in Miracles, because this will be on the A Course in Miracles Explained YouTube channel.
All right.
So let's just start with the course and how you found the course.
Well, I have been an audio engineer and producer since 1971, but full-time since 1978. And I work with a lot of different groups. And sometimes they're very happy with what I do, most of the time, hopefully. And they want to do something special for me as a gesture of thanks. So there was a group that I worked with, and they were happy with their project, and they invited me over for spaghetti supper. Now, normally I don't accept those kind of things, but for some reason, something in me said, yeah, you need to go to this. So I went to this thank you dinner for getting their project finished, and they were very happy and blah, blah, blah. So I showed up, and it was a nice spaghetti dinner, and we visited and blah, blah, blah. And the lady that invited me, after the meal was finished, took my plate off the table and then took A Course in Miracles and slammed it down in front of me where the plate was and said, "You have to read this." And I go, okay, all right, well, whatever. So I started thumbing through the book, and every page that I landed on spoke truth to me. I read some of the lines and said, well, this is true. I opened another page. Well, this is true. And every page that I opened rang as truth to me. And then I read the introduction. This is A Course in Miracles. It's a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. And, the standard introduction for the course. And by the time I read that, I said, okay, this is something I need to read. And I thanked her very much for this. And ever since that day, I have been a student of A Course in Miracles.
And were you a spiritual seeker before all of that?
I was. I was actually into. First of all, I was raised German Catholic in a little small town in Missouri called Oran, O-R-A-N. You probably never heard of it. It's only about 1,200 people. But it's a wonderful place to grow up, and my parents are still there. I'm the oldest of 8 children. It's a wonderful place to grow up and be from, but I don't live there. So I was raised German Catholic in a German Catholic community, but then once I got married, I started questioning the teachings of Catholicism, and I eventually dropped that entirely and went through a period of seeking where I didn't believe anything. I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in, you'd call me an agnostic. You could call me whatever, but I just didn't believe any of that stuff. So that carried me through most of my first marriage. And then whenever my first wife and I divorced in 1986, I started a spiritual quest. And the material that I started reading was Gem Elixirs and Vibrational Healing by Garudas. So I was into crystals and stones and different types of healing materials, different types of diet, that kind of stuff. And I would just follow my intuition. Wherever it led me, that's what I did. Mm-hmm. Eventually, I started dating a woman who asked me if I was on a spiritual quest. And I said, I guess so. I don't know. I'm trying to find some stuff. She goes, have you ever heard of Edgar Cayce? And believe it or not, I had not. I never heard of Edgar Cayce up until 1987, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. And she said, no, you got to read about America's greatest psychic, Edgar Cayce. I said, okay. So I started reading about him. I bought There Is a River, Story of Atlanta, Edgar Cayce, Story of Jesus, all the standard set of books that you read on Edgar Cayce. And that got me intrigued, and I started opening my mind up to the possibility that, maybe there's more to it than I believe I know. So I was willing to be shown the truth. And then shortly after I made the decision to be willing to be shown the truth, the Course came.
And do you want to talk about how you found the other sets of materials? Like, when did NTI come in? Where did Law of One come in? And is there a story to that as well?
Well, there's always a story, but it's just a story.
Okay.
Remember, I think I need to preface this and stop us in our tracks right now and say that there is nothing that I can tell you that you do not already know. And that is true of everyone watching this video. There is nothing new, and there's nothing that I know that you do not know. Everybody is shared and given the same information. Now, we have chosen to forget it. Mm-hmm. Now, that's true. We have chosen to believe that we are separate from everything and we have forgotten everything. So I first want to say that I only wish to express truth in our conversation. I have no interest in expressing anything that's not truth. I just want to share what I know is truth. So I want to get that out of the way and make sure that you understand that this is not something special that I know that you don't know or John Doe doesn't know. Everybody has access to this information. If they would be still an instant and go home and go into the silence and listen. So with that said, how did I come about finding NTI? Through the Course, I learned to trust my intuition. I learned to trust my intuition, and I act on impulse. You'll find out with a couple other stories. I know we're going to talk about David in a minute. We're going to talk about some other things. But in my career, I have learned to shut off the thinking mind and just go with whatever intuitively I receive. Sometime in 2006, I believe it was, it could have been 2005, somewhere around mid-2000, I did an internet search. I got the prompt to an internet search to do A Course in Miracles. I had been studying it, but I'd let it go, because I don't know about you, but when you study the Course, there are periods of times when you're really, really studying it, and then there's periods of times when it's not in your life. And that's what I experienced. The first 5 years of A Course in Miracles was very intense, every day, all day, and then it started gradually tapering off. Well, then in mid-2000s, I got the prompt to do an internet search for A Course in Miracles. So I did. And when I did that search, I found a website that was speaking Course terminology, Course thought systems, and what I believe to be the voice of Jesus or the voice of Holy Spirit. And it was on a website, and it was not quoting A Course in Miracles. It was new material. It happened to be from on a website called ReginaDawnAkers.com. Mm-hmm. and she had written some stuff on her website that I read and I recognized as truth. So I also got a prompt to call her, just cold call her, because you'll find out that that's what I do. I cold call people. If I get a prompt to call John Doe in Uganda, I'm going to call John Doe and just tell him I am such and such and whatever. I follow the prompts to the letter, whatever it is. So I got a prompt to call Regina. I called Regina. I said, hi, you don't know me, but I've been reading your website. What the heck's going on here? Who are you and what's basically give her the third degree. I said, of course, she didn't know me from anywhere. And I think during the conversation, I even told her that I was going to ride my motorcycle. I'm a cross-country motorcycle rider, too. So I've got a gold wing, and I ride across the United States that I love to do. And I told her during this conversation, I said, and this is brand new. It's just within 2 minutes of meeting her. I'm going to take my motorcycle. I'm going to drive to North Carolina. I'm going to spend a couple days with you.
Well, but I suppose being Regina, I think she expected that. I said, like, she's used to such things happening.
I think it kind of surprised her a little bit. This was mid 2000s. Now I don't think anything surprises her. But through that conversation, we have become friends. I actually am a student of NTI now. And by the way, for those people who do not know, NTI is an acronym for New Testament Interpretations, which is a shortened version of the official title of the book, which is The Holy Spirit's Interpretation of the New Testament, A Course in Understanding and Acceptance, which is kind of a long title, obviously. Mm-hmm. So, and just as a point of reference, I also ended up recording the audio version of NTI, which is available on a website that I run called audiblespirit.com. Mm-hmm. So you can download the audio version of NTI, read by Regina, from audiblespirit.com and listen to it on your iPhone, your iPad, iPod, whatever, your computer. So that's how I found NTI. It was just a cold call, acting on inspiration.
And did you find the NTI material supported your journey more than the course?
I don't think it's more or less. I think it's one of these things that's additive. They both speak the truth to me. The Course in Miracles speaks the truth. NTI speaks the truth. It's just opening up or removing the blockages to the awareness of truth.
How about the Law of One then?
The Law of One I found because of my relationship with David Wilcock. Now, David and I met each other almost exactly like Regina Dawn Akers. In 2004, I was listening to Coast to Coast AM, and at the time I think Art Bell was the host. And I heard him interview somebody by the name of David Wilcock who claimed to be the reincarnation of Edgar Casey. Now, I had no idea if it's true. I still don't know if it's true. I don't really care. I was listening to it, and I found it interesting. And while I was listening to it, I got the prompt to call him. I don't call guests on Coast to Coast. I don't call anybody. I mean, that's not. But I got the prompt. So I listened. And so I called David. And at the time, he was accepting bookings for private one-on-one readings. Mm-hmm. So I booked a reading. And he was booked up until 2005, January 2005. In 2005, we had our reading, first part of January. And it went, fairly typical, I guess, for the way he did readings, about an hour or so. And during the conversation, I also got another prompt, which was, tell him you're a record producer and tell him what you do and tell him about your awards and tell him. So I did. I just mentioned it. And it turns out that David is a musician also. He plays drums. He's a great musician, by the way, if you don't know that. So I told him that we were going to do a project together. Now, little did I know that everybody and their brother tells him that, but I didn't know. I was just following prompt. Yeah, we're going to do a project together. He searched internally and came up with the same answers I did. Yes, we are going to do a project together. Well, in less than 3 weeks, he booked an airplane ticket and flew to my studio, to my hometown here in Austin, Texas, and spent 2 weeks with us, me and my wife, Carla. And we recorded what became The Science of Peace. And it's still available on his website, divinecosmos.com, divinecosmos.com. So through working with David and becoming his webmaster and doing all these projects with him, I naturally became exposed to his spiritual teaching, or the teaching that he follows, which is called the Law of One. And for those of people who don't know what the Law of One is a set of 5 books, 6 if you want to count the introduction, in channeled material that came through Carla Ruckert in the early 1980s. And through David, I found out about the Law of One, and he only heard briefly about A Course in Miracles. So his and my relationship fostered my interest in the Law of One and his interest in A Course in Miracles. Now, we have since done a couple-hour show talking about the similarities between A Course in Miracles and the Law of One, and that's available for free on his website, divinecosmos.com, if you want to hear that. So that is a long explanation of how I was introduced to the Law of One material through David Wilcock, just following prompt.
Larry, do you want to give us a very brief rundown of the similarities? Just the very main ones.
There's only one of us here, which happens to be the title of one of the books I'm writing. I'm writing a spiritual book. It's a channel material. I just clear up my mind and I just write whatever Spirit says. The official title is "There's Only One of Us Here, and It's Not You." Mm-hmm. So, and what I mean by that is that there is only, and I hate to use this word because there's so many connotations, there's so many negative associations with the word, but I will use the word and explain what I mean by it. There is only God. Now, the word I like to use instead of God is everything. Okay, there's only everything. Mm-hmm. Now, what separates everything into individual parts is our thinking. And that's it. Our thinking, which is judgment, separates infinity into individual or undivided reality, separates the oneness of everything into two-ness by judgment. And that's what I believe, that's my understanding of the reason that the Course in Miracles places so much importance on forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Because through forgiveness, we release our judgments. Forgiveness is releasing of judgments. And you will find, or at least I have found, that all judgments are thinking. All thinking is judgments. They are exactly the same thing. All thinking is judgment. It separates the observer from the observed. Mm-hmm. So in order to experience oneness, you must accept everything as it is, or another way of saying that, forgive everything, accept everything as it is without wanting anything to change, and then be willing to do the ultimate acceptance, which is the acceptance of that you are everything. You and I are everything. Or another way to put it is, you and I are God. We are. And the only thing that separates us from everything is our belief in self. And like one of the interesting quotes in the Bible is, you must die to the self in order to have everlasting life. What does that mean? Die to the self to have everlasting life. Well, what I have come to understand what that means is that ultimately the idea of self is the idea that you are somehow separate from the oneness. And that must be released and let go of in order to experience oneness. So, forgiveness, which is the key to remembering the truth of who we are, is exactly the same as accepting everything as it is without wanting anything to change. And therefore, everything and God are the same thing. This is what I am coming to understand and believe and live and know. And I hope I'm explaining this into a point you can understand or your listeners can understand. I teach this on my radio show, A Course in Miracles, almost every week. And a lot of it's the same thought system that's put into different words, but it's really all about forgiveness. It's really all about forgiveness.
Do you want to talk about the issue of God and whether or not God created the world, and how is that interpretation with ACIM and the law of one, on whether or not it agrees?
I think that it's semantics, basically, and it's just words. Now remember, the Course says words are twice removed from their source. Mm-hmm. So, in my understanding, God did not create the world, because in reality, the world does not exist. One of the things the Course in Miracles says that really defies the logical mind's thinking is there is no world. It says that many times. NTI says the same thing. There is no world. How can two books that have so much in them that seems to be truth, and then they put in a phrase that says there is no world, and it just seems to defy the logical explanation, logical meaning, logical thoughts? And I ask for an answer to that. How can there be no world? And what I found is that if you look, there really is no world. The only reason the world appears to exist is because of our belief in it. And our beliefs collapse infinite potential into matter instantaneously. In other words, we are the creator, but we have hidden behind a veil of forgetfulness. The veil of forgetfulness that we are the creator. We've sort of taken a vacation from knowing everything and created this wall around us so that we don't know the truth of who we are. And we've said, okay, I am not cause, something outside of me is cause. That's another thing that the Course is very big on, is reversing cause and effect. Excuse me, when you say that God is something other than you and He did this to you, what you're really saying is that you're not God. And when you accept the fact that you have chosen everything in your life, you have cracked the door open just enough for the light to shine in to see that, oh my goodness, I am the one that put the veil in place. I am the one that chose to forget. I am the one that made all this seem real.
And is that what the law of one, the law of one talks about intelligent infinity, dividing into many, many pieces.
Right.
How does that fit in with what you just said?
Okay. First of all, I need to qualify myself and say that I am not an expert on the law of one material. Sure. I am still reading it. I have not read all of it yet. I am still reading it. I'm still learning. So I do not consider myself an expert on the law of one. So I can only tell you what I've read so far and explain that as what my experience is. So please keep that in mind.
Yeah. You don't have to answer if you don't want to answer.
Oh, I'll answer everything, anything I know.
Okay.
I will just ask a question. If there is only oneness, how can two-ness exist?
You can't.
It can only exist as an illusion. Okay? If there is only oneness, and oneness is the only reality there is, how can two-ness appear to exist? Through illusion. That's one of the things I know the law of one says. It says that all of this is illusion. It's all a projection from the one mind of God. It says that in the law of one. Mm-hmm. So all the different levels that it talks about are all part of the illusion. It's all part of the illusion. One of the things that David Wilcock talks about in his lecture, and this is just a recent addition as far as I'm aware, is that there are 3 levels of reality, 3 planes of existence and reality, and this is not one of them. this is not reality. This is an illusion. Now, that sounds really strange to somebody who thinks logically and thinks, well, but I can feel my hand, I can touch this computer. It all feels so real to me. All I can say is that if you suspend your beliefs long enough, you will experience the truth.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is one of the rare interviews where I'm being guided not to take an opinion on anything. So, Larry, usually I do a counterpoint. Like,
Right.
like I talk about my thing and, we're all swimming in the same direction, you know what I mean?
Right.
But for this interview, I'm just witnessing, and I'm just allowing you to this platform for you to say whatever needs for whatever you need to say, basically.
Well, hopefully it's not Larry. Hopefully it's just Spirit speaking through Larry. That was my intent. As a matter of fact, before we had our conversation, I said a little prayer. I said, get Larry out of the way. I don't want to be a part of this. I just want Spirit to speak truth. And that is my entire focus right now. Because I do not want to lead anyone down a false path.
Gotcha.
I only want, and the truth is, I can't tell you anything you don't already know. Everybody already knows this. It's just they've forgotten it or they've chosen to forget it. When you still the mind, when you quiet the mind, and you release all beliefs and let everything go and be willing not to hold on to anything, like Eckhart Tolle says, when he had his awakening experience, it felt like he was falling. But he didn't try to hold on to the walls. He didn't try to hold on. The voice said, hold on to nothing. Hold on to nothing. And that is the key. The key to remembering is to give up your beliefs. Hold on to nothing. Let your thoughts go. Thoughts are just judgments anyway. Let them go. And then the truth will come directly to you.
That I can agree 100% with.
Right.
Letting go of everything and just following Spirit.
Right.
Okay, and so let's talk about the most dangerous device podcast.
Sure.
Why the most dangerous device? What does that mean?
Well, this entire offshoot, and it's really an offshoot from a spiritual path, but maybe there's a connection. I don't know.
There's definitely a connection.
You think so? Well, I don't know.
I definitely think so.
Okay. Well, it's just something fun for me. It's just something I'm always interested in finding new things. And I told you I was writing one book called There's Only One of Us Here, and It's Not You. Well, there's a second book I'm writing. It's a novel, and it's not a channel novel. It's a typical novel with a hero and a villain, and it's got a storyline. And it's called The Most Dangerous Device in the World. The book is about a young man who invents a free energy device and then encounters resistance from this evil corporation who controls the energy on the planet and doesn't want his free energy device to come to market. So that's the entire book, is about that struggle. Okay. Well, one of the things that I want to do when I do this book is to support the book, a fiction. It's a fiction book, but I want to support it with facts. So I started this radio show called The Most Dangerous Device, where I interview people who have invented or who are working on over-unity devices. And for those of you who do not know what over-unity devices are, they are devices that produce more energy out than you put in.
I can see the jaw drops already.
Yeah. Well, most people don't even know they exist, you know. And through my research, I have found out there's about, before I had interviewed Sterling Allen, I had found about 20 devices that produced more energy out than in. Now, that's not supposed to exist. They're not supposed to exist in reality. I mean, in this world, I mean, we're taught in school and universities that there are certain laws of thermodynamics. There's only a finite amount of energy and
Yeah,
blah
the
blah
second
blah.
law of
Yeah,
thermodynamics,
whatever.
entropy.
Well, yeah, those are not laws; they're just suggestions. But anyway, they're beliefs.
Yeah,
They're really,
true.
when you
It's
get
true.
down to it, they're just beliefs.
The hypothesis,
That's exactly right. And
hypotheses.
they
Yeah.
call them laws, but they're not. There's only God's laws, by the way. The only laws that exist are God's laws. And man's interpretation of God's laws does not mean that they're different laws. They're just his interpretation. So anyway, getting back to what we're talking about, there exist over unity devices that produce more energy out than in. And I found out about 20 of them.
Tell us a little, and you found this through David Wilcock. I was listening to the interview. Do you want to talk
Yes.
about the SEG?
Sure. SEG is only just one of many.
Okay.
But the SEG is actually the model for the novel, the most dangerous device.
Right, but it was Wilcock that said, Larry, there is this device out there, and then you were
Right.
like, you were incredulous, you didn't believe him.
Exactly. When we were talking about that, this was 2 or 3 years ago when David was here working on Wanderer Awakening, which is a spiritual musical that we wrote together. That when we were working on that project, we also did a couple interviews, and one of them we were talking about that. He was mentioning John Searle's SEG. And for those of you who do not know what that is, the SEG stands for the Searle Effect Generator. What the Searle Effect Generator is a device that uses magnets to produce an unlimited amount of energy. And in the process of producing that energy, the device overcomes gravity. Now, I can hear people, they're going to listen to this right now, and they're going to think, that's not possible. It's just bull. Oh, well, he's a quack. There's
He's
a lot.
A course student.
He's whatever. He's a course.
He's out of his mind.
Yeah, he's out of his mind. He doesn't believe in it as real anyway.
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't really care.
It doesn't matter to him. Everything's an
matter.
illusion.
So, I did some research on John Searle. And of course, there's always controversy. You can find a website that says blue does not exist. If you look hard enough, you'll find a website that says the color blue doesn't exist. So you can find a contradiction to anything you want to find. Because this world is made up on opposites. This world is absolutely made on hot, cold, left, right, up, down, right, wrong, yes, no, me, you. It's a world of opposites. So naturally, when you find a device like John Searle's device, you're going to find people and articles that say, no, it doesn't exist. It's a lie. It's a hoax. Well, I don't close my mind like that. I keep an open mind. At the end of my radio show, I always close with, keep an open mind. Let the light shine in. So I found out that John's device, he really made several. As a matter of fact, he made 42 of these devices in the mid-60s and 70s. And he flew them. He lost 6 of them to outer space because he couldn't figure out how to stop them from overcoming gravity. Okay? There is a movie that made about this guy that everybody needs to watch. It's called The John Searle Story, SEARL, johnsearlestory.com.
Yeah. I'm downloading it illegally now, actually.
Buy the movie, watch it, keep your mind open, and you tell me, how did they get those pictures? How did they get those that device? I mean, the man proves. I already know how the device works, or I think I do anyway, and I'll be happy to share with you how it works, but I think that's beyond the scope of our interview here, because this is probably going to lose a lot of people in technical jargon, but it doesn't matter. The point is through my research, I found out that device really existed and exists. They're actually recreating it in California right now.
Okay. So Larry, now we've laid out all the cards. And I think it's time to put them together, to put the pieces together.
Okay.
And so let's start talking about free energy and how that's going to change the world if it does exist.
Well, we know free energy exists, or when I say free energy, I'm talking about unlimited sources of energy. We know it exists because electrons spin around atoms. They've been doing that forever, or at least until since time began, and they're not slowing down. Electrons are not slowing down around protons. I should say what appears to be electrons is not slowing down of what appears to be the nucleus of an atom, because in reality there are no electrons and there's no nucleus and there's no protons, there's no neutrons, none of that exists. They are infinite potential molded into some sort of a liquid kind of medium that appears to be reality. So matter is constantly changing. But getting back to the subject, electrons spin around the nucleus of an atom, and they have been forever. So we know whatever energy is causing those things to spin exists, and it's not going away, and it's not slowing down. So we know that type of energy exists. What we do not know, or at least most people do not know, and what's taught in school, is that how do we tap into that unlimited infinity, or that infinite energy? And I believe that there are several devices that have learned how to tap into that energy. Instead of burning fossil fuel or using nuclear or solar or wind or whatever, they tap into an energy that simply exists everywhere for infinity and doesn't run out.
Actually, Larry, I'd just like to offer how I see all of this. And I mean, we all know from the course that there is this linear route back to God, right? This process of awakening as individuals and then collectively. I mean, that's more of a law of one concept, right? That a third density planet moves into a fourth density planet. And the way I see it, we are moving very rapidly towards that shift, which is what the law of one calls, 2012 and the harvest. And clearly with the free energy stuff, that's paving the way for a fourth density world. And you were talking about that with Sterling Allen on your interview, right, with the most dangerous device. And I found that very valuable because it stretched my thinking. What would a planet look like with infinite energy? Right? People would shift out of that ego scarcity mentality because everybody would have energy and abundance and infinite. You would have overcome all your material needs, and now you could just dedicate, in a sense, your life to spiritual progress.
Yes.
So how I see all of this coming together is that, Spirit is using you because you have a deep understanding of spiritual knowledge. And this is one of the themes that we did talk about as well, right? That the free energy community is actually very much a spiritual community as well, or at least people are very open to spiritual ideas. Right? Because it may seem a bit jarring at first, but then it made complete sense, because to talk about over unity, you're suddenly shifting into love. You're suddenly shifting into abundance instead of scarcity. And
That's right.
To manifest that reality into this illusion, we must follow the guidance of Spirit, which is, of course, spiritual, right? So it makes complete sense, to me at least. So how I see all of this, is that basically Spirit is using you because you have a deep understanding of spiritual materials, and then obviously there are real world solutions being brought to you, and this dissemination of information is coming out through you as well. And obviously, again, with the law of one stuff, with it making 2012 quite a special date, that's something which is also important, so to speak.
Well,
I tried.
No, I think you're doing great. I would just say this, that there is nothing special about me that's different from you or anyone else watching this program. Spirit is using all of us.
Hmm.
This is a shared illusion. And so there's nothing special going on here. Matter of fact, that's one of the things the Course talks about is how specialness, um, you want to remove specialness because the specialness is where you get the degrees of separation and the levels. Specialness is all about degrees and separation, whereas oneness is not. Oneness is oneness, where we're all the same. In other words, God extended himself. He didn't say, I created a son who was somehow less than me. He imbued everything God is to his son
Yeah.
and gave his son everything exactly as it is. So with that in mind, and to follow up with what you're talking about, yes, I agree. We live, or we appear to live in this third dimensional world right now where it's a pyramidal structure where we have a top-down mentality where there is a leader and then there's other leaders and there's other leaders and there's a hierarchical situation. It's a top-down pyramidal structure. And I like to say that paradigm may need to go away for us to make the next level of existence on this planet. And so I like to say it's time to invert the pyramid so that the people are in charge instead of a few elite who are in charge dictating what the planet, the direction the planet should go to. But in order to do that, I think we need to turn our focus spiritually towards God. Now, like I said, I hate to use the word God, so to everything. We have to turn our focus inward towards the truth and make that our number one goal. Because infinite energy given to a planet that is not spiritually directed is just going to end up blowing the planet up. I mean, infinite energy without a spiritual focus is chaos. And I think the first step is going to be a spiritual step. And the first step is awakening to the fact that God is everything. And that you and I are collectively the Son of God. It's not some special individual that there was only one and that we are not that. It's not something outside of us. So that's the first step, because we must recognize that the homeless people, the uneducated, the people who are having a difficult time, they are all us. We are all in this together. We are all one. So forgiveness is the first step in awakening, which is accepting everything as it is and seeing everyone as one. And once we have the mindset, we know that you are my brother, you and I are one being. We no longer have the situation where there's an up and he's in charge and everybody else is following the leader. That's the pyramidal structure the way it is right now. There's a book that I talk about in a couple of my interviews, and I think everyone should read this book. It's called Thiaouba, Thiaouba, and you can get it for free at thiaouba.com. I'll spell it one more time, thiaouba.com. Get the book, read it. Don't just read it once, read it at least 3 times, because the concepts presented in this book are so unusual that you will read this book and you will completely forget you read it. Your mind will block out the fact that you've read something so profound. So it's going to take at least 3 readings to get this. But one of the things that Thiaouba talks about is this concept of one representative per 8 people. Right now, we have a representative that handles millions of people. It's an impossible situation. There is no way he or she can effectively represent 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, 100,000 people. It's not possible. It's just not possible. So in the book, Tia Uba, they talk about a planet where at one time, it turns out that the planet was Earth about 1.2 million years ago. They talk about the fact that these 8 people have a representative, and then those representatives get together and they have another representative. In a sense, it is a pyramidal type thing, but it's the next step to getting to self-rule. The step before self-rule is having representation that is not so far removed from the people. Right now, our government in Washington is so broken because it is owned by corporations who are not even Americans, multinational corporations, who influence our senators, representatives, and even the president to do things in the name of money. It's totally driven by money, and they do not represent the people. It's all about getting reelected and staying in power. That's it. It's destined to fail. It's destined to die. It's destined to not be effective for the people. So in this book, the reason I bring it up is one of the things they present is a way to be governed, or the way to govern, the way to have a society where there is representation and things are taken care of, and your representative does know your needs, and there is a direct correlation. The representative has one term, and it's not paid. It's volunteer. But it's just like service, just like armed service. You have a duty to serve your country. You represent these 8 people. Now you do your one term, and then you're done. Somebody else does it. Anyway, so that's a concept that most people probably will not get unless they read the book with an open mind.
By the way, Larry, I read that book when I was 16.
Oh, you did? Awesome.
And also I spoke to our common friend who introduced you to the book today.
Oh, who's that?
And we can't name names on the show.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she would kill me, actually.
Okay, well, all right.
But
I don't remember who turned me on to the book.
Oh.
Show.
Yeah, she's going to have a word with you.
Oh. Yeah, she'll just have to get over it.
Yeah, but no, I agree. I think Tia Uba was an amazing book for me. I mean, it's really far out. I mean, but when I read it, I knew it was true.
Yep, me too.
Something in my gut, I knew it was true. Exactly. Yep. I can't explain it. I don't have proof. I don't have a PhD. I don't do research. I know it's true, and I will stake my reputation on it.
Yeah, me too. I know it's true.
Yeah. But
when you read it, your logical mind is not going to want to accept it. It's not going to want to. They're going to say, "No, it can't be true. It can't be true." No. Well,
Larry, the other thing I discovered through you is vortex-based math, which is a. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. I was clearing my throat, and I mute my microphone when I do that. Right, so,
right. And that is very interesting to me, because to me it represents math being redesigned. I mean, I don't understand it, but I smell that it's very important because it's based on spiritual laws. Would you agree?
Right. Well, I'm not an expert on vortex-based math, but I interviewed 2 people that are into this just recently, so I know a little bit about it. I will say that one of the things they both say is that numbers are real. Numbers exist as real things, and that this math may be the math that we use to get to the next level of existence. It seems to be a math that explains and predicts things that we could not explain or predict before, and how it relates to the human body, the human soul, and that's the spiritual connection, and also infinite energy. It's very interesting mathematics, and very interesting what Daniel Nunez is doing with that math in building his Abha torus, which is one of the devices that exhibits over unity phenomena. It's very interesting.
I agree. And I just want to say as well that I am trained as a mechanical engineer. I have a master's in mechanical engineering from Imperial College, London.
Awesome. Well, great.
Believe it or not.
No, I believe it.
And I just want to say that throughout my life, obviously I've come to realize. I mean, for example, economics. What I was taught at A levels. The whole monetarist versus Keynesian debate is very much like the Democrat versus Republican debate. It's really not really a debate. There are a lot more.
Just to keep us occupied from thinking about what the truth is. Exactly.
And you realize that what you learn in schools, which I learned, history as well. I never learned about the important parts of American history with the formation of the first two Federal Reserves, for example. And just encountering all this free energy stuff really caused me to rethink my education. Obviously there's this like you said, this concept of it's the second law of thermodynamics that they wield very heavily in the training, saying entropy laws, we can't go above 60 or 80% or whatever.
Well, they're big on Newtonian physics, and they're big on
exactly.
and that's provable physics with all the information they give you. And I would have to say this is just an opinion, and this is just my opinion. I think that universities are very good at teaching students how to regurgitate material.
Agreed.
They're not very good at teaching people how to think.
Yeah, which is what they want.
Oh, yeah. It's very good workers. They want very good workers, obedient workers that don't think outside the box. They do this.
Yeah, very left-brained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the truth is, if you quiet the mind, I have learned this, and I'll give you examples to prove it. I have learned that if you quiet the mind, you meditate, you turn the thinking mind off, what happens is thoughts are replaced by intuition and a knowingness of what is true. So when you meditate and quiet the mind, truth permeates your existence. And you know things that thinking would never be able to explain to you. That's what I found anyway.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about in one of your interviews again. We talked about I think it was Sterling Allen that said that at one point in time modern science proved that flight was not possible.
True.
Right.
True.
And it's the exact same situation that's happening, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. To follow up on the question you asked before, what would a world look like with infinite energy? I think first of all, like I said, we have to have the spiritual connection. But eventually, what will happen is that you will not only will we remove the pyramidal power structure in our political system, we will literally remove the pyramidal power structure of how power is distributed to the planet. Instead of one power plant trying to power millions of homes, each home would have its own power system and be able to survive. You would have a home that would survive anything, because you could dig a well, you'd have your own power source in your home, and they could be by choice interconnected, so that the power system, instead of being one device that a terrorist could take out and one device that when it goes down millions of people are affected, it would be distributed power, where little stations in each home would power each home. So one power one power station going out would not affect the whole at all. So I believe that the discovery, or rediscovery, I should say, the truth is it's a rediscovery because this was on this planet at least twice before in Atlantean and Lemurian times, and maybe even before during the Baccaratini settlement of the planet, which is in the Tia Uba book. For those of people who don't know what I'm talking about, read Tia Uba and it'll explain all that. The rediscovery of free energy on this planet is key, and the distribution of energy on a home-by-home basis with representation, no more than 8 people per representative, and an effective legal system that is not based on judgment, but based on love and forgiveness. Right now, our courts are all about pointing blame, compensation, and monetary compensation for blame or for anything. They deserve this. They deserve this. It's not about helping people. It's not about finding the root cause. Well, why did you kill this person? Or why did you steal that money? What is it about your makeup that thinks this? What causes your thought system? It's not about helping them. It's about punishing them. And that, I think, is detrimental to society. I think we have to learn how to fix the lowest members of our society, because we are all in this together. We are all in this together. From the lowest, I say lowest because I can't think of another word to describe it. From the people who we are calling the scum of the earth right now, on television you watch the people and you say, oh, those people are Occupy, they're bad people. And the people that we look up to, which we glorify, the sports heroes or the rock stars, or where everybody is the same. Everybody is the one infinite creator. And until we adopt that attitude and see that, we're gonna still have trouble, I believe.
Have you watched Kymatica by Ben Stewart?
Nope. Send me a link.
Yeah, I will. I think it's a very important link in what we're talking about as well. And Kymatica it links very well with everything that we're talking about. But I would say Kymatica is basically talking about how planetary systems evolve. And it talks about government being a collective manifestation of the ego. And obviously we see different forms of government throughout the evolution of Earth, right? And in Kymatica it talks about two completely opposite spectrum ends of a spectrum, which is dictatorship, right, which is total control, right, a 1984 kind of environment, or democracy, which is not democracy, anarchy. But it's basically saying there are no laws, so obviously for people to exist in anarchy, you have to be extremely spiritually evolved to coexist, without killing each other. And Kymatica is an amazing documentary, and I don't want to talk about it too much because I feel like I don't want to get it wrong. But when I watched it, I was amazed by how many links were being made in that film with all of the stuff that we've been talking about: Course in Miracles, the Law of One, especially.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. Yeah, I love to learn. I love to watch new things.
Wonderful. Larry, we've talked about so many things. I think it's time to wind it up a little bit. And I'm sure this has been a mind-bending experience for anybody, because actually we've covered there are many kind of sets of knowledge that we've talked about here. And I feel like it's Spirit is pulling all of this together to for like someone who knows this piece of the puzzle to know about this piece. and for someone who knows this piece to know about that piece. So
Right.
it's very much an information, educational kind of mind-opening intent behind this interview.
Right. Well, thank you. It was my pleasure, and I am honored that you called me to interview me. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll be very, very glad to have more discussions with you in the future.
Anytime. I love to talk.
This kind of material. Larry, thank you so much.
You're welcome. You have a
Okay.
wonderful day, and please send me a link whenever you get this done. I'd like to watch it.
Definitely. And I'll send you the Kymatica link.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Bye for now. Ciao.